"Get out and stay out," my father shouted into the blizzard, like I was a stranger, not his daughter. My mother looked away. My brother smirked. His wife whispered, "Finally." They threw me out because I had left medical school 9 years earlier, convinced I had ruined the family name. What none of them knew was that I had built a $50 million life without their approval. The next morning, I moved into my penthouse. 3 weeks later, my family walked through its doors, dressed for victory, and ordered security to remove me without realizing whose home they were standing in or why they were invited. My name is Hope Miller. I'm 35, and for most of my life, I was the daughter people pointed to when they wanted proof that a family had done everything right. I was the oldest child, the careful one, the girl who never missed curfew, never skipped class, and knew how to smile through Thanksgiving dinners even when my stomach was tied in knots. In old family photos, I was always standing beside my father, Michael, while my younger brother, Daniel, leaned against my mother's shoulder. From the outside, we looked polished. My mother, Susan, kept cinnamon candles burning in every room during the holidays. There was always a pie cooling on the counter, silver serving spoons laid out beside white plates, and a framed family portrait above the fireplace. In that picture, all 4 of us were smiling. What the picture never showed was how carefully love was measured in our house. My father was a respected heart surgeon and a senior medical executive. He believed medicine was more than a career. To him, it was a family legacy, a badge of intelligence, discipline, and worth. When I entered medical school, he introduced me as his future partner before I had even finished my first year. Daniel learned early that approval came from obedience. He became a cosmetic dermatologist, opened an elegant clinic with our parents' money, and married Lauren, a corporate attorney who could insult you while sounding like she was offering advice. I took a different path. I left medical school at 26 and built a business in health technology. My family reduced that entire decision to 3 words Hope gave up. They never asked how many hospitals used my work. They never asked how many nights I slept beside my laptop or how many times I nearly lost everything. They only saw that I was not wearing a white coat. Still, I kept one family photograph in my apartment. I told myself it meant I had not stopped hoping. Then, one December afternoon, my mother called. "We're having our anniversary dinner in 3 weeks," she said. Her voice was softer than usual. "Your father wants the family together." I stared at the photograph on my shelf. "Does he want me there?" There was a pause. "He wants a fresh start," she said. That pause should have warned me. But longing can make even the smartest person ignore the truth standing right in front of her. So I accepted, unaware that reconciliation came with a prepared lie. The storm had already started when I reached my parents' house outside New York. Wet snow clung to the shoulders of my coat. The porch smelled like pine garland and cold stone, while warm light spilled through the windows behind me. Inside, glasses clinked. Someone laughed too loudly. For 1 second, I almost believed I was walking back into a home. My mother met me near the entryway. She kissed the air beside my cheek, then took my wrist and guided me toward a quiet hallway. "There's one thing," she said. I waited. "If anyone asks, just say you consult in healthcare." I stared at her. "I run a health technology company." Her smile tightened. "Hope, please. Tonight is important to your father. So I should lie. You should be considerate." That was how my mother did it. She wrapped humiliation in good manners and expected me to thank her. Before I could answer, Daniel appeared in a navy suit my parents had probably helped pay for. "Look who made it," he said. "I figured you'd be too busy fixing computers." Lauren stepped beside him, polished and smiling. "Daniel, be nice." Then she looked at me. "Hope, I know a lender who works with small businesses. Very flexible terms. I'm not looking for a loan." "Of course," she said, with the kind of smile that meant the opposite. Dinner began under crystal lights and the soft hum of a string quartet. My father moved from table to table, receiving praise like he had built the evening with his bare hands. Then a hospital board member stopped beside me. "You must be Dr. Miller's daughter," he said. "Are you in medicine too?" My father turned before I could answer, Hopeful. Warning. I left medical school, I said. I run a company that builds technology for hospitals. The man nodded politely. But my father's face changed. 5 minutes later, he pulled me into the hallway. My mother followed. Daniel and Lauren came too. You embarrassed me, my father said. I answered a question. You made me look like a liar. I didn't ask you to lie about me. Daniel crossed his arms. You always have to make everything about your choices. Lauren sighed. An apology would solve this. I looked at all four of them. No. My father's jaw locked. Get out and stay out. The words cracked through the hallway. I stepped into the storm without my coat properly closed. Behind the glass. My mother turned away. Daniel lifted his drink. Lauren whispered something that made him smile. No one came after me. The locked door behind me felt colder than wind cutting through my clothes, and that was when I finally understood. They were not angry that I had failed. They were angry that I had survived without obeying them. The next morning, Manhattan looked scrubbed clean. The storm had passed, leaving the streets wet, bright, and sharp with winter light. A moving truck waited beneath my new building while workers carried boxes through the private service entrance. Tape ripped, cardboard scraped across marble. My heels clicked through rooms so quiet I could hear the heating vents breathe. I had bought the penthouse 6 months earlier for $12 million. The closing was complete. The move had been scheduled weeks before my parents' anniversary. I had imagined inviting them for dinner, pouring wine, and finally showing my father that leaving medical school had not destroyed my life. Instead, I unpacked alone. The last box held the family photograph from my apartment. I set it on a side table, looked at our frozen smiles, then turned it face down. 9 years earlier, I had been 26 and exhausted during my hospital rotations. I watched nurses chase missing records, doctors wait hours for test results, and families repeat the same painful story to 5 different departments. The system was not failing because people did not care. It was failing because information moved slower than illness. I started building a simple platform at night. When I told my father I wanted to leave school and develop it full-time, he barely looked at my notes. You are throwing away a real career, he said. 3 years later, I went back to him for help. I needed almost $10,000 to improve security and qualify for a hospital trial. I brought projections, payment terms, and a clear repayment plan. He dropped the papers into his trash. 2 months earlier, he and my mother had given Daniel roughly $350,000 for his clinic. That was the day I stopped confusing fairness with family. I worked nights in office buildings. I took small programming contracts. I pitched investors who checked their watches while I spoke. Then one community hospital agreed to test my system. Errors dropped. Wait times improved. Other hospitals called. By the time my family threw me into the snow, my personal assets were worth about $50 million. Most of that value came from company shares, investments, and the penthouse. My relatives never knew because they never asked a single serious question about my work. For 6 months. My company had also been negotiating to help acquire and modernize a struggling hospital network. 3 months into the review, I learned my father was one of its senior medical executives. I disclosed the relationship immediately and removed myself from every decision involving his position. An independent committee took over that review. Then, 1 week after the anniversary, my property manager sent me a guest list for a private gala booked on the event level below my residence. The hosts were Daniel and Lauren. I read their names twice. They had rented my home to impress the very people they believed mattered most. And 3 weeks after my family shut a door in my face, they were preparing to celebrate beneath my roof. They had no idea the woman they mocked would be upstairs when their carefully staged triumph began. By 8 that Friday night, the lower level of my penthouse looked like a showroom for people desperate to be envied. White orchids climbed the walls. A string quartet played near the glass staircase. Waiters moved with silver trays while Daniel shook hands like he owned the place. Lauren stood beside him, greeting senior partners from her firm. My mother floated between guests, adjusting napkins and pretending every detail reflected her taste. My father barely noticed. He kept checking his phone. The hospital transition had closed that afternoon, and the independent committee had warned that executive decisions would follow. He had no idea whether he still had a job. I had spent the evening reviewing the final transition plan. When I returned, I used the private elevator connecting the event level to my residence. The doors opened. The quartet missed a note. Daniel saw me first. "What are you doing here?" Lauren turned. My mother's face hardened. My father stared as if the storm had delivered me back to punish him. "I live here," I said. Daniel laughed. "No, you don't. I'm going upstairs." Lauren stepped in front of the elevator. "This is a private event." "So is my home." Her eyes narrowed. "Hope, don't make this embarrassing." My mother hurried over. "You followed us. I came home." My father pushed through the circle forming around us. "You were told to stay away from this family?" "I'm not here for the family." Daniel pointed toward security. "Remove her." I looked at him. "You should stop." Lauren lifted her chin. "We signed a valid rental agreement. You are trespassing and harassing the hosts. Leave now, or I will call the police and make sure this follows you for years. You haven't asked the only useful question." "What question who owns the property for the first time?" She hesitated. I gave them one last chance. "We can speak privately, right now." My father stepped closer. "There is nothing to discuss. Get out before you humiliate yourself again." That ended it. "Andrew Parker, my property manager." Crossed the room with 2 security officers. Daniel pointed at me. "Finally, escort her out." Andrew walked past him. "Good evening. Ms. Miller, welcome home." Silence spread across the room. Lauren's expression changed from contempt to calculation. "That is not possible." Andrew remained calm. "Ms. Miller owns the triplex, including this event level. Your agreement grants temporary use of the rented space. It does not block her access to her residence." Daniel stared at me. "You own this. I bought it 6 months ago." My mother gripped her glass until her fingers whitened. Then Thomas Reed, one of Lauren's senior partners, stepped from the crowd. "Ms. Miller," he said, "I apologize. We did not know this involved you." Lauren turned toward him. "You know her." "She founded the healthcare technology company retaining our firm for the hospital transition." The room seemed to tilt around her. I faced Thomas. "Lauren threatened me with false criminal accusations after I identified myself as the homeowner. She cannot represent my company." "Understood. She is removed from the matter. Her partnership review is suspended pending an internal investigation." Lauren went pale. "You cannot do this over a family misunderstanding." "This stopped being a misunderstanding when you threatened a client in her own home," Thomas said. My father's phone chimed. He read the message twice. His shoulders dropped. "What is it?" my mother whispered. He looked at me. "I've been suspended." No one moved, and even the musicians lowered their instruments in silence. The independent committee had placed him on leave while it reviewed the $200 million expansion, unpaid bills, and ignored safety warnings. Then his expression softened with shocking speed. "Hope," he said, "you could fix this." "You mean interfere. I mean protect your father. You threw your daughter into a snowstorm." I was angry. "You were honest." He reached for my hand. I stepped back. "I disclosed our relationship months ago and removed myself from every decision involving you. I did not destroy your career. I simply refused to use my power to hide the consequences of your choices." My mother began to cry. Daniel looked around, finally realizing every person he wanted to impress had heard everything. I turned to Andrew. "Please end the event." Then I faced my family. 3 weeks ago, you threw me out because you thought I had no value. Tonight, I'm asking you to leave because you still don't know how to respect another human being. This time, the door closing behind them belonged to me. The morning after the gala, the penthouse felt unnaturally quiet. The orchids were gone. The glasses had been cleared. Only one petal remained near the staircase, pressed flat against the marble like something beautiful that had been stepped on. I stood there with a cup of coffee and waited to feel victorious. I did not. What I felt was space. For the first time in years, their voices were not inside my head. The consequences came slowly, which made them more real. My father remained suspended while the independent committee reviewed the hospital's expansion project. Unpaid bills, and the warnings his team had ignored. He was allowed legal counsel. He was given time to respond. No one erased his rights because I was angry with him, but the records were clear. Months later, the board removed him from his executive role. He was still permitted to practice medicine while a separate professional review continued, but the title he had built his identity around was gone. My mother took it harder than he did. Without his executive income and bonuses, they could no longer maintain the country house, the club memberships, and the endless charity events that had once made her feel important. She sold jewelry, canceled trips, and eventually put the house outside New York on the market. The women who had crowded around her at dinners stopped calling. One afternoon, she left me a voice message. "I never knew people could disappear so quickly," she said. I listened once, then deleted it. Daniel's clinic did not collapse overnight. Reality was quieter than that. He cut the lounge, sold equipment he rarely used, and moved into a smaller office. For the first time, he had to sit with patients, review costs, and make decisions without calling our father. He hated it at first. Then, according to someone we both knew, he began arriving early. I did not mistake responsibility for redemption, but it was the first honest thing he had built. Lauren's firm removed her from the hospital account and paused her partnership review. The internal investigation found that her threats toward me had shown poor judgment and created a conflict with a client. She kept her job, but she received formal discipline and lost the promotion she had been counting on. Her marriage to Daniel began to crack under the pressure. He blamed her for the gala. She blamed him for needing his parents' money, without status holding them together. They finally had to confront who they were without an audience. Then the messages started. My father wanted me to speak to the board. My mother wanted help with payments. Daniel wanted an investment. Lauren wanted me to tell her firm it had all been a misunderstanding. For weeks, I answered none of them. Then I sent one response through my attorney. I would not pay personal debts. I would not interfere with investigations, promotions, or business decisions. Any future meeting would require a family therapist. No money could be discussed, and an apology had to name what they had done, not hide behind phrases like mistakes were made. I left one narrow door open, not for access, for accountability. That evening, I picked up the family photograph from the side table. I did not break it. I placed it inside a box, closed the lid, and carried it to the hall closet. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. Claire, Marcus, Natalie, and 2 employees who had known me when I could barely afford server space stood outside holding takeout, flowers, and a grocery store cake with my name written crookedly across the top. I opened the door, and for the first time, the penthouse felt like a home. Family taught me that love without respect is only control wearing a familiar face. Forgiveness does not mean reopening every door. And justice does not always look like punishment. Sometimes it means stepping back and refusing to erase the consequences someone created. If your family has ever made you feel small for choosing your own path, remember this: you are not difficult for protecting your peace, and you are not selfish for setting boundaries. If this story spoke to you, share your experience in the comments, send this video to someone who needs it, and subscribe for the next story.